I ran it for 8 years in the first chapter, and we grew it to 100 million.
You really pioneered the idea of community as like a cornerstone for brands.
It's doing the things that aren't scalable.
Yes.
TYB is the tool I wish I had, and I really believe the future of brand building is all about co-creation, so empowering kind of those most obsessed with your product.
Haney, are you ready to dream bigger?
I'm pumped.
So you really pioneered the idea of community as a cornerstone for brands. So talk to me about how you really saw that starting to shape Outdoor Voices.
Yeah, it wasn't something premeditated. So right after college, started Outdoor Voices at 23, and quite simply had grown up an athlete wearing Nike and wanting product that made me feel stronger, faster, et cetera, to cross the finish line first. And then saw this opportunity to create a recreation brand all around activity for the fun of it and freeing fitness from performance. And so really it started with product and technical product for recreation, but then the community element came from the activation of it. And so the purpose of the brand to get people moving, sweating, having fun with friends, it just authentically made sense to start to activate in athletic and movement type ways around product for recreation.
So when it came to this concept, I feel like before Outdoor Voices came along, just athletic wear was for athletes, where, I mean, you were really, wearing these things to go do these like hardcore activities like running. That was kind of what I grew up in university with. So talk to me about even just the concept of building something to do things. Was it because you wanted to be active with friends? Like, where did that even come around?
Yeah, I grew up in Boulder, Colorado. Have you been there?
No, but I want to.
Outdoorsy, like immersed in nature. And I mention that because the environment in which I grew up in has a lot to do with how OV came to life. And so it's very recreational. You're right at the base of what we call the Flatiron Mountains. And so you're hiking every day, you're dog walking, you're hopping on a bike to school, you're kayaking. Like, it's just very active, and the activities integrated very naturally into your daily life. So I grew up with that way of life. And then I also grew up really into sports. And so I ran track, played basketball, etc. And obviously loved Nike because it's better, faster, like competition, and you want to win. I then went to art school in New York, and obviously a very different environment. No longer had team or coaches or games to keep me active. And I remember noticing mentally and physically I just didn't feel like myself. And so without kind of the practices, et cetera, to keep me active, I wasn't moving. And so personally felt I needed to find inspiration to move, but it looked and felt different than being on the basketball team, trying to score the most points. And so it really was a personal, I guess, just recognition that I wasn't moving, and now in New York City that didn't have the nature of Boulder. And I really wanted to create something for myself all around creating that inspiration to move recreationally versus for competition.
And so then when you did launch Outdoor Voices, was the community aspect also rooted in you wanting to find that community that people typically have with their teammates?
It's a really good question. I don't think someone's said it that way, but I think so. One of our core tenets and kind of operating values was it starts with us. And that meant our team. And so our mission at Outdoor Voices is to inspire people to move, to do things. And I always said it starts with us. So if we're going to speak to this and kind of recommend that people find ways to be active, let's do it ourselves first. And so it's funny, our second New York office was on Canal Street, and there was this basketball court just down the way. And so every Friday at lunchtime, all 10 of us at the time would go play. And I think our first New York Times feature was us coming back from playing at the Canal Street basketball courts. But really it was about, if we're gonna preach this and this is our mission and purpose, we better start it ourselves. And so it quite literally started just with the team and committing or connecting to that mission and that purpose.
I love that. And then when did you start to realize that, people were also looking for that sense of community? When do you even remember the first time you did an activation?
Yeah, so we had a pop-up on Lafayette, a few blocks up from the office. And
what year was this?
Good question. It's like having a kid. It's
Yeah.
blacked out. I don't know. Probably like 2015 or 16.
Yeah, because I asked this because I remember so clearly you guys just exploding.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I'm asking, because I think like that was really the time when I remember you guys doing these activations. I mean, I live in Toronto, but like I would remember seeing you guys on social, like there were all these like OV activations. And I was like, this is really cool that this brand is putting community at the center of the brand story.
Yeah, a few things there. So obviously direct to consumer and like everything being online was the name of the game at that time period. And so because we're an activewear brand, but also just because it started to work, we really prioritized activity that was IRL and convening people and sparking bonds through connection. But after that Canal Street story, the next kind of activation I remember was hosting a dog walk out of our pop-up. And so you can imagine all these people show up with their dogs like at, in Soho, and it's like quite the spectacle. And I think just looking back and then thinking kind of about community today, like it really started small and like it started local. And that was in a lot of ways like opposite to kind of what people were thinking the opportunity with direct to consumer was, and like scale and be everywhere, but like prioritizing, like it starts with us and then local events, and then over time there's local events happening everywhere at once, and it starts to be amplified through social and feeling really big.
So I would like to get your thoughts on a younger brand who's just starting out, okay? And say they want to do an activation, but they're afraid that not enough people will show up. What are your thoughts or advice?
I mean, I think about it as Kevin Kelly's an awesome kind of thinker, and he has this concept of 1,000 true fans, and just like simply says if you can get 1,000 people to buy everything that you make, like you can start to have a meaningful business. And I really like that concept because it's not all that audacious, but it starts with one person loving what you do and showing up to buy or participate in whatever you put out there, and then the second and the third and the fourth, and really relying on word of mouth. And so again, like thinking small and like creating something that's highly potent that like guarantees that person's going to come back to you that second, third time and like eat up everything that you put out there. So yeah, I think it's starting small versus thinking you have to get big really quick. And I really also think like it's doing the things that aren't scalable.
I always say this.
Think that, right?
And
yeah.
I think people stay with you for that reason.
Yeah.
Like just today, I got a message from one of our like early customers. So our first year of business, we would send like personal Polaroids to every single customer. And when we could, we'd hand deliver. And this one girl DM'd me being like, my first order from you guys had a Polaroid and I'm still a customer. I'm like, that's crazy. And we did that knowing we couldn't scale it. But that's the beauty of your early years. You get to do these really grassroots things and it's a beautiful time for a business.
Totally. Yeah, like, and that becomes something big companies at scale can't do. And so that high touchness like really creates emotional connection and stickiness ultimately that drives loyalty over time. We had a similar thing early on, which was simply like our team would jog and hand deliver local orders. And so we had this tote that became, it was everywhere in New York, especially over time. But the tote and this jogger from the team like was a visual that then we'd put on social, et cetera. But people loved receiving kind of this hand delivered or hand jogged order, and then they'd tell their friends about it.
That's so cute. I love that. So you guys, I feel like were at the center of the CPG boom. Like I feel like the years, like what was it, like 2013 to 2018 was this like boom of CPG brands and just like D2C brands rather. Yeah. How did it feel to be operating such a fast growing business at such a young age?
Yeah. I mean, the vision and mission for OV to build the #1 recreation brand and then get people moving is an awesome one. And like, I think it's really important, particularly as we think, like, I think of movement as really the antidote to a lot of bad things in the world.
Yeah.
Both mental, physical. And so that's like where I was maniacally focused and found energy. It happened to be at the time where a lot of companies were able to raise significant capital because of this new model. In looking back, I wouldn't say like any of us got that model 100% correct. Like there aren't a lot of instances or examples of those companies, those founders, like having massive wins. And so I think that model was flawed, but ultimately, like, there was a lot of things that were awesome about that time. I ran it for 8 years in the first chapter, and we grew it to 100 million. So obviously, like, the pace of scale was possible because of the direct to consumer model and really lowering the barrier to entry for brands to sell on Shopify. But obviously, like, as a first-time founder, and then with the stakes that we essentially signed up for by raising that amount of money, like, a lot can go wrong when you're making physical product things that need to fit people and, like, quickly and at scale. And so I think it was just fast, and for a first-time CEO and founder and all of that capital, there was just a lot of pressure. And I, again, don't think that there's all that many examples of brands that, came out of that kind of chapter super successfully.
No, because I think you are forced to grow like a tech company.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really the thing, that like everyone was expected to behave, grow, raise money like a tech company. And it's now obviously like things have changed and we've kind of gotten to a point where it's I guess more appropriate for the different categories.
Yeah.
And I think like businesses are valued at like the multiples that are appropriate for the kind of business that you're building. But I remember that time, and I can't imagine the immense amount of pressure that the founders who grew at that time, though it was so exciting, but it was a crazy time.
Totally. Yeah, just like physical product businesses in a lot of ways like need to have a more methodical pace.
Yeah.
There's just too much that can go wrong with inventory. And I run a tech company now, and so I can see like why software businesses, for example, like can scale much more quickly.
1,000%. I mean, you have like an inbuilt user base that pays month over month, or it's like a year long. It's a different business model altogether, though.
Yeah. And it kind of ties back to this community piece. Like early innings, so the first 4 years with Outdoor Voices, we opened these little kind of neighborhood shops. And so not traditional big box retail that would cost a lot and be kind of like where most people are shopping. But we found success like in finding these cozy little neighborhood joints that we'd then have activities around, and they were low rent and really productive. And when we'd open those, they'd unlock kind of awareness for the total market. So we'd see like the online halo effect. That said, like there was pressure to move more quickly. And so in hindsight, the best thing for the business at the time would have been continuing to lean into this like community unlock model through these retail events, the field marketing, et cetera. I really think of it as like the community-led approach, and really kind of let that be our model over time. But we ended up like having pressure to grow at breakneck speed, and therefore needing to spend a lot of money on Instagram and Facebook, which ultimately costs a lot and nets customers who don't stick with you.
So when did you realize that you had like misalignment with what you thought was right for the business and the pace versus the expectations?
I knew instinctively, and then as we were able to connect the dots from a data perspective, like the community model was quite different and appealing. That said, like I was also young and quite influenced, and what would it be? Like influenced by like people who had a lot more experience. And so we did have a pretty strong perspective board. And so it was a bit of a dynamic that I guess was a bit untenable as a young founder to like really be like, this is the path. And so ultimately, like I wasn't able to fully like see clearly and be able to kind of have full conviction in, this is the strategy that we're going to go forward, and like we're not doing what others are doing at the time.
Also, I think as a founder, it's really interesting, but I think you go through stages where, getting from 0 to 1 million is a very different thing than getting to 10 million and then 50, 100.
Yeah.
And there's like times, like I remember when we were like around the 20 mark, I was like, I see the path to 50, but I don't yet see the path to 100. And so to be put in a position where you may be at like 25, but then the goal is like 100 and the goal is 100 tomorrow, that's a very difficult thing to do because it requires just a completely different framework than getting to 50, you know?
Totally. I found like early innings, the hardest part was finding the right kind of level of team members to hire.
Oh my
Like,
God, yeah.
that was where we missed biggest, I'd say. Because we'd bring people in from like very mature companies who were much more in like maintain mode versus like value creation mode. But at the same time, you needed a bit more like structure and experience. And so in looking back, that was definitely the most difficult part of it. And then our board certainly like had perspectives as well. So that if I could like put a pin on it, was definitely the hardest part of that first 8 years.
So when you left Outdoor Voices, and I ask this because I think most founders can relate to the idea that their business is like actually like a part of them. Like I feel like Array, even though I have interests and hobbies outside of it, Array is like my child,
right?
You know, and I know that other founders have spoken to me about feeling the same way about their business. Did you feel the same way about Outdoor Voices? And like, how was it leaving your business?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like a kid. And I had spent at least 8 years like deeply in the details and weeds and obsessing over how, you know, this needs to come to life with every pixel and every thread. And so, yeah, similar. It took me like a good amount of time to like be able to be okay with whatever happened. It's still a little bit of a question mark to me, or just like you can't fully reconcile it. But I look back on that like 8-year chapter and I'm like, this is a gift. I have put a big bow on it, like a masterclass in learnings. And I tend to be a pretty optimistic person, so maybe people think I'm crazy there. But I was able to find a way pretty quickly by like sinking my teeth into a new company within a few months after I departed, to like put blinders on and only look forward versus look at the past.
So was it TYB that you started right after? Like, is that what you started to work on immediately after leaving, or was it Joggy?
I had left Outdoor Voices, and then the board asked me to come back. I went back for a few months, and then pretty quickly realized like I was put in this box with like no agency, and that was not gonna work. And so I initially like started thinking about within kind of this recreation space, like what if I created a few different brands that were like externally different, so like experts in shoes, experts in energy, etc., but then had a shared back end and operating team.
Smart. Okay.
And so we started to like have brands in a box, and Joggy was the first one that we kind of like started to put into action. But as we started thinking about going to market with Joggy, this concept or idea for community commerce, which is what TYB does, came to life. And so I ended up going all the way in on TYB pretty quickly.
So I told you this before we started recording, but I think something that struck me as so impressive about you is that you are so hands-on and so grassroots, even though TYB is your second business. And, you know, I've seen other founders who've, you know, had success in one business, or, you know, it's their second time around, and they don't want to do the same grindy shit that first time founders do. And you're out here kind of like doing that. What, I guess, like, how did you realize that that's the approach that you wanted to take, and why? Yeah.
The first chapter of Outdoor Voices taught me all about ownership, and I like to be accountable, etc. But that experience, like, ultimately, it was all on me. Like, and I take that, like, I, as the CEO, own every decision or everything that went well and went not well. And so I think, like, into this next business, like, ownership is something I really take seriously, and then connected to that, like, our execution. And so obsession with details is just something I've learned, and it comes naturally, but I really love what we do and who we get to work with. And so being in the weeds, in a sense, is just like a really amazing state for me. And I think we progress most quickly when the full team like feels me there. And like I'm really kind of a collaborative partner with them deeply in the details.
I also think that customers connect to a brand more when they see that a founder is like deeply involved and deeply cares. And in this sense, TYB is like, I mean, it's like a B2B model. But I remember when I first got the DM from you, I'm like, okay, like respect to this chick. Like she's built one business and now she's out here doing a second. And she's the one who's personally reaching out and trying to get like customers onto this platform. And so I just thought it was really, really impressive. And I think other founders should take notes, because I think the big takeaway here is that it actually doesn't matter how successful you are or how far you've come in your career. I think that no founder should feel like they're too senior to do any job that comes their way.
Totally. And that is a bit of the concept with TYB. TYB is the tool I wish I had in my first kind of era of growing a business. But simply, it is an owned fan channel where there can be that closeness with super fans or your customers, and they're connected to you and the team. And I think in a lot of ways, like discovery optimized ad platforms have taken away kind of the ownership of relationships between brands and fans and founders and fans. And I think like a lot of my success and just like my view of the world is like fit brands and fans and founders should have closeness and own those relationships. And so that's just, I guess, the way that I view things. And I really believe the future of brand building is all about co-creation. So empowering kind of those most obsessed with your product to continue to have a voice in how you evolve. And then rewarding for people who are obsessed and continue to show up every day and buy everything and promote and tell their friends, et cetera. So co-creation and incentivization are really kind of at the highest level what TYB is all about.
I love it. So for people who aren't familiar with TYB yet, can you explain like the features that people have available to them?
Yeah, of course. So TYB stands for Try Your Best. It's a B2B2C community rewards app. And so our customers are brands. And then brands have access to this tool to invite their community into this app, where essentially they're engaging with the brand, completing challenges, and earning status. And really, it's gamified loyalty, but loyalty that actually is fun to engage with and valuable to both brands and fans. And at its core, it comes down to incentivization or reward design. And so again, back to like this direct-to-consumer model, we would raise all this capital, spend it on Instagram or Facebook, but then these, as you looked at the data, many of these customers were not the ones that really were a match for your business and they wouldn't repeat purchase. And so simply TYB is all about driving that repeat purchase and then frequency of purchase and loyalty, lifetime value over time.
I think it essentially helps brands build healthier businesses.
Exactly.
Because retention, I think, is everything.
Making e-commerce profitable. Like you've got to be able to keep customers with you and build their value over time. And so it's really a sticky channel. It's an own channel. And in the data, it's pretty clear that it's the most engaged channel for brands. So fans are finding value interacting with brands in this way. And then they have closeness, they're rewarded. And so it's become very effective. We now have 250 brands, many of the top consumer brands, including you guys on platform. And it's certainly like what I believe every brand will have this fan channel, this own fan channel over the next 12 to 18 months.
I agree. And I think brands should be paying attention to how to keep your customers, because acquiring new customers is expensive.
Yeah.
It's so much better to have an engaged audience who, you know, is loyal and they feel seen and heard and taken care of by the brand.
Yeah. And then as we think about loyalty, like I think loyalty from a status and identity standpoint is really going to turn on. And so the B2C side, like the consumer side, in the app, I'm able to prove my fandom. And so I'm joining Array, I'm leveling up from level 1, 2, 3, and as I do, I get notifications that you're now level 2, and I share that to social, almost like as a bragging right. And we're seeing that be a really effective way of driving kind of new people into brands through referral and word of mouth.
I love that. So you mentioned that you basically have done something whereby you have multiple brands, but it's basically the same team on the back end.
Mm-hmm.
How are you structuring that? Because I think it's genius, but also I think not something that all brands have been able to be successful at.
That was my, like, right after Outdoor Voices, that was my vision. But again, Doggy was the only business that we had like made product for and we're ready to go to market. And as we started to put it out there, that's when the idea for TYB came into play. And so I kind of let go of the 4 kind of like businesses in a box and shared backend and went all the way in with TYB. We still have Doggy, which is organic energy, is like a side business with no pressure around it, which is kind of fun. But TYB is its own like entity.
How on earth are you at 3 businesses? Like, how are you operating 3 businesses? And like, we've not even gotten to the fact that you are also back at Outdoor Voices. Like, this is insane. Like, how are you doing all 3 of those? Because TYB in itself is like a fast growing tech startup. Like, what?
That's my main thing. So I'm all the way in on TYB. Joggy, we have an excellent team that runs it. And so I do very little there. And it's quite straightforward. It's simply more cans in hands. And so the team's amazing. And then, yes, I rejoined Outdoor Voices. Announced that a few months ago and then had been really kind of working on product for the year prior. And it took me a minute to like decide to do that. And when I was
very
considering
Steve Jobs a few.
Yeah, doing things again. I was referencing his comeback in a lot of the assets that we put out there initially. But similarly, there's an I have a very kind of robust operating team there, and I get to kind of play to my strengths. So Outdoor Voices is really a creative outlet that becomes a cherry on top to kind of my main thing with TYB.
So what are you doing now at Outdoor Voices?
It's a great question. I've assembled the creative team. We have an amazing design director, and I'm allowed to kind of set the course. I'm a partner. I'm an owner. I set the course and vision for the brand. But again, there's like operators and team in place where I'm not running it.
How have you cultivated resilience? Because I think like when I think of you as an individual, I think that's like one of the first words that really comes to mind. Like you seem like someone with a ton of grit and resilience, where it's like you can like you will like come back up. You'll like get the fuck back up. You know what I mean? So
I'm an excellent horseback rider and I've fallen off a few times.
Okay.
So getting back on the horse is not new to me. I do think I have like this insane optimism. So and maybe a short memory. so the shitty stuff goes away quickly and then I'm the
same,
back
by
there.
the way. I think founders need that. They need
100%, it. 100%. So that's a bit in our DNA. But I, again, like if there's one word probably that I'd tag myself, at least for today, it's like around obsession. And so I love building. I'm deeply obsessed with it, as all founders tend to be when they're successful. And so I couldn't imagine doing anything else than what I'm doing.
I love that. I love it. Okay, I want to move on to audience questions.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first one is, if you had to rebuild OV from scratch tomorrow, what would you do exactly the same and what would you leave behind?
Yeah, well, that's exactly what I'm doing. I was not there for 5 years and it effectively went dormant. The North Star of recreation is intact, alive and well, and very energizing. I think the biggest change is, and it's probably because of maturity, but we're stepping into like outfitting the entire recreational lifestyle, where I'd say like early innings, because I so badly wanted to like prove our credibility as like an active wear company with like product made to sweat in. We stayed in like compression tops and bottoms and kind of like a narrow lane. And it's been so fun to kind of introduce capsule collections rooted in specific activities like OV Equestrian, and like go into specific products like the ride pant that are like unique to that activity. And so we've like boldly come back, I'd say, and are salting the senses with kind of out there activities that a Nike necessarily wouldn't necessarily touch.
I mean, you're currently wearing an OV cardigan and it's so cute.
Yeah, that's the other thing. We're really mixing in natural materials with synthetic materials.
Uh-huh.
So this is cotton cashmere, and it's a cropped cardigan that goes over your leggings or whatever you're wearing. I'm just having fun with it.
Can you guys just ski, please?
Sure.
No, please.
Yeah,
because
sure.
I feel like, so we ski every year and I'm always looking for like cute things because I wear leggings when I'm wearing like my like crop jackets. And this is not while I'm skiing, but like après.
Yeah.
And I'm wearing just like athletic like leggings. And I'm like, someone needs to come and do like an athletic brand or like a movement brand needs to come do like cute ski.
Totally.
So
we just released our first outerwear. And the glossy puffer is to die for. It has a big recreation branding on the inside. And then I think you might need this. I'll send it to you. We have a bonnet, like a balaclava in a sense, but in like turquoise and pink. And
fun.
I think that could work on the hill before we have the whole getup.
Yeah, I love it. Okay. Next question is, what's the one thing you refuse to compromise on, even if it risked growth while building your brand?
That's a good question. Refuse to compromise on. I mean, at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is excellent product. And so that's what I obsess over.
I love that answer because I think if you don't have product at the center of a business, I feel like you're a marketing company.
Yeah.
You're
totally.
not, you don't actually have a brand. It's just
agree.
you're a good marketer.
I think like marketing should be considered sometimes like test not having it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I agree.
And then you can add it back in once your product's excellent.
I agree. And I think like it's the same thing that we think of at Array. Like our product team is at the center of our brand, and everything else could leave, but our product team we must retain. And that's like where we invest the most money as well.
Yep.
It's just necessary, I think, for good growth. Okay. How are you spending your day? What does an average day look like? And this I got a bunch of times because people are like, she's horseback riding, she's a mom. So how on earth, what's your day look like?
I have 36 hours in a day. No, I'm just kidding. I have 2 kids.
You're actually Beyonce.
Yeah, here we are. I have a 5 and 3-year-old. So they're in the mix. They're wild. They're amazing. I start the day with them and then into TYB meetings. And then when I'm lucky, I fit in jumping my horses. I love a lot going on. I'm kind of like very into the chaos of it all. And that's just been my nature forever. Like, kind of funny story. We would go on family vacations and my parents would always have to like put me on some like big task. Like, this girl's 5. No, I think I was 7, learning to scuba dive. Like, go put her in the pool, take her away. I just like would gnaw my paw off if I'm not doing a lot. So that's still me.
Cool. Last question. Do you have any advice for entrepreneurs who are wanting to have kids?
Do it immediately. It's so
really
awesome. Yeah, like don't overthink it. 100%. Like I think people like really contemplate and dwell, and it's the best thing that's ever happened. So the sooner you can do it, I would recommend it.
How do you manage your time with your kids as well?
It's just easy. It's just what would I say? It's natural. That's what we're here in a lot of ways to do.
I love that. Okay, Ty, this has been awesome. Tell everyone where they can find you.
Ty on TYB.
Amazing.
Someone got Ty, just TY.
You're kidding.
That's embarrassing for me. So.
That is so funny. Oh my God. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, of course.